MMA Giga Chads, I have a huge update on the UFC's antitrust lawsuit and what it means for fighters. Let's jump in. So, this class action antitrust lawsuit against the UFC has taken a major step forward after years of delays. In the video, I'll break down what happened and what it could mean for UFC fighters going forward. First, let's get to the background of this lawsuit. The lawsuit was originally filed way back in 2014 by ex-UFC fighters Kung Lee, John Fitch, Kyle Kingsbury, and many others. They alleged that the UFC has monopolized the MMA industry and suppressed fighter pay through restrictive contracts and business practices that violate antitrust laws. The UFC tried to get the case dismissed, but judges ruled last year that it can move forward as a class action lawsuit on behalf of the fighters. So what's changed between 2014 when they originally filed and now? A huge development is that the class has now officially been certified by the court. Quickly, let me explain the difference in the class types. Originally, this was filed as an identity class for the fighters that initially filed this case for the UFC using their likeness and merchandise, etc. Now, this is certifying as a bout class. Now that means it can cover hundreds, if not thousands of fighters who fought under the UFC over a certain period of time. This class covers all UFC fighters from 2010 through 2017 unless they opt out. Around 1,200 UFC fighters from that period are now automatically included as plaintiffs in this lawsuit. This massively raises the stakes and potential damages if this case goes to trial. So, what are these potential damages? The plaintiffs have estimated the total damages could be between $800 million up to a whopping $1.6 billion. And because this is an antitrust case, if they win, those damages could be tripled by the court to anywhere from $2.4 billion to $4.8 billion. That's an absolutely massive threat hanging over the UFC right now. So, what's this part about injunctive relief? Let me explain. Injunctive relief is when a court orders an individual or an organization to stop/prohibit a specific act or action in regards to another. In this case, it could affect how the UFC does business and how it practices in certain ways. The court confirmed that fighters can seek injunctive relief, meaning the UFC could be forced by the court order to change parts of their business model if found in violation of the antitrust law. This poses a huge risk for the UFC in which they could be forced to completely change how they do business. So what has the court found in their findings to justify all these changes? In allowing this lawsuit to proceed, the court has already found evidence that the UFC allegedly used exclusivity deals, restricting mobility between promotions, and buying up rivals to maintain market dominance and suppress fighter pay. The court said these practices prevented fighters from understanding their true market value. Now, what does this mean for the UFC? With the class now certified, the UFC is facing both a massive financial threat and intense scrutiny of its business model. This gives fighters way more leverage to push for change in things like contract length, restriction, and pay. The dynamics in MMA could be shaken up dramatically depending on how this plays out. This antitrust lawsuit is now primed to have huge ramifications on the sport's future. This story was originally reported on and broken by John Nash, also known as Hey Not The Face, on Twitter. He is one of, if not the, leading expert on all UFC lawsuits in this regard. When there's another large development in this case, you will definitely see an article from John Nash, and you will definitely see a video on here on YouTube. So, if you like this kind of content, let us know in the comments below and what you'd like to see us cover next.